symptoms real? Do I need to go to a doctor? Am I actually ill enough to need a diagnosis? Why are you making such a big deal about it? I think it's all in your head. You're just being hysterical. What if it is all in my head? What if all of the things I think are wrong with my body are really just normal things that bodies do and everyone else feels like this all of the time? What if what's happening in my brain is what's happening in everyone else's brain and I only seem to find the world a little bit harder due to an avoidable flaw in my character? Hello lovely people, I'm Jessica Kellgren-Fozard and on my channel I talk a lot about queer culture, disability activism, fashion history and vintage style advent calendars if you caught my last video. Because why not? We all need some joy. One of the most asked questions I see in the comments of my videos and in my DMs is, how do I know if I'm ill enough for a diagnosis? We can be very good at ignoring the distress we're in or disregarding our pain because we think it's normal. So how do we know when it's serious enough that we need or even deserve a diagnosis? I have a number of videos on my channel about my various diagnoses and the process of acquiring them, and about getting misdiagnosed, which was, how do I put this, an incredibly unpleasant tangent in my disability adventures. 0 out of 10, would not recommend. I know how frustrating it can be to not understand why you're in pain or why you're struggling and how exhausting it can be needing to advocate for yourself in medical settings. But even before you talk to a doctor, you sometimes need to convince yourself that your symptoms are real and you're allowed to take what you're experiencing seriously. Or, you know, you have a whole bunch of lovely people commenting on your YouTube videos suggesting gently that maybe you have ADHD. And it finally prompts you to think, maybe I do have ADHD. I'm going to be sharing some distressing medical stories in this video as well as lots of data about why people worry that they're not ill enough to get a diagnosis, and I wanted to give a heads up that I'm going to briefly mention miscarriage in one section, so please take care of yourself, and if you need to skip this video and come back to it another time, that is totally understandable. Also, a lot of the language used in the research on this topic is very binary and not in the least bit inclusive or necessarily includes the experiences of trans men and non-binary people when discussing the diagnosis of gynecological cancer, for example. Speaking of non-binary icons, are you a fan of the non-binary Princess Stevonnie? But Steven Universe just isn't available in your country. Do you want to watch Princess Bubblegum being absolutely adorable with Marceline the Vampire Queen, but Adventure Time isn't available in your country? Well, no worries, I've got the answer. Today's sponsor, Surfshark. Yes, welcome to the ad section of this video. Surfshark is a top-rated VPN service with a super strong layer of encryption. When you choose one of their several worldwide servers, your internet traffic enters an encrypted tunnel, which then helps to shield your identity. Surfshark not only allows users to browse the web securely, it also lets you access geo-restricted content by changing virtual locations. And with their clean web feature, you can block ads, trackers, malware, and phishing attempts. So, Surfshark keeps your information secure and lets you watch great content. And one account can be used on an unlimited number of devices. Wow! Well, right now there's an unbeatable limited time deal for Black Friday. Go to surfshark.com/Jessica for 4 extra months of Surfshark at an exceptional price. But hurry, this offer won't last long. It's just for Black Friday. The link will also be in the description. Are my symptoms even real? Sometimes it can be challenging to identify if what we're feeling is a symptom of a chronic illness or disability, or if it's just a normal part of being a human with a body. We might wonder if what we're experiencing is a medical problem or if we've just been really stressed recently. Is this endometriosis or is it just bad period pain? It's just bad period pain. Is it a symptom of something that I keep getting really hot at night? Or is it normal and I just need air conditioning? You just need air conditioning. Do I have chronic fatigue or am I just more tired because it's been a busy few weeks? Or maybe you're tired because you've slept too much and you're using it as an excuse for being lazy and not getting enough done because everyone else is managing to. Also, drink more water. Essentially, there are a lot of reasons why we might not take our own symptoms seriously. And if you're here on my channel or a friend sent you this video, I think it's likely that you might relate to the self-doubt that makes us question our own experiences and wonder if we're making a fuss over nothing. And this self-doubt is often the internalization of very real external factors that mean women and people of marginalized genders, people of color, and folks with other marginalized identities are less likely to be taken seriously about our pain or believed about our own bodies. However, There's definitely research that suggests you aren't exaggerating your symptoms and you should talk to a health professional. A study published in the Journal of General Internal Medicine in 2014 examined the reasons why people avoid seeking medical care in the USA. They found 3 main reasons: negative expectations about the process of seeking medical care, traditional barriers to medical care like high cost or lack of health insurance or time constraints, and, the one that is most relevant to this video, a low perceived need to seek medical care. This group makes up around 12% of the overall participants of the study. The research elaborates that the most common reasons why people think they don't need to seek medical care was that medical problems would improve on their own or improve with time. These participants said things like, "Whatever the symptoms, time will make it better," and "I believe the body will heal itself in most cases." Others said they didn't need to seek medical care because they didn't think they were sick enough, or that their symptoms were so significant they needed to talk to someone. They said things like, "What I have will pass, I only go if I think it's serious," and that they don't go unless there's real need. And some participants, albeit a small number, said that they avoided seeking medical care because they were afraid of being labelled as a hypochondriac, which is also known as health anxiety, in which the NHS defines as being when you spend so much time worrying you're ill or going to get ill that it starts to take over your life. Which is probably what you're doing. Oh, you'd just be wasting everyone's time if you went to the doctor. Please stop talking. Look, even if you have health anxiety, you'd still deserve medical care. I think it's far more harmful that the fear about not being believed or labelled hysterical is stopping people from going to the doctor. In a Self article in 2023, Corinne Miller wrote about how she experienced fainting episodes for almost a decade without looking into whether it could be a symptom of something serious. She said, "I remember the first time I passed out. I was doing a tough workout with my cross-country team in college, I felt woozy, and suddenly I woke up on the ground. Since then I've been passing out when I've been sick with a cold, including a time when I was so disoriented that a doctor had to call an ambulance to take me to the hospital, and on the underground during my first pregnancy." Scary as these fainting episodes were, they were spaced far enough apart that I didn't really put together that something might be connecting them. A quick heads up that the next part of Corinne's story mentions miscarriage. I'm going to have the timestamps on screen now. Corinne explained that she didn't take her dizzy spells seriously until they began to happen more often. In 2018, she had a miscarriage and fainted from blood loss and hit her head when she fell. On another occasion, she broke into a sweat and almost blacked out after a friend's wedding. She continued, "Finally, I went to see a cardiologist a few months ago. I was tired of fainting spells disrupting my life, and I have 4 young kids and a chef husband who works late at night. I could end up passing out when I'm alone with the children or seriously injure myself." It was time to figure this out. After getting an ultrasound of her heart, Corinne was diagnosed with bradycardia, which means her heart rate is slower than 60 beats per minute and lower than what's typical. She worked with her cardiologist to figure out what causes her heart rate to drop even lower and trigger her fainting, and has not fainted since the diagnosis. Yes, but that's her. You are making too big a deal out of this. Still not convinced you should take your symptoms seriously? Well, a systematic review into the help-seeking behaviour in women diagnosed with gynecological cancer that was published in the British Journal of General Practice in 2022 concludes that although in some cases participants may have correctly assessed that the symptoms would go away with time or heal on their own, low perceived need to seek care suggests a need to educate patients on how to recognise symptoms for common health problems and the value of medical screening for asymptomatic conditions. Basically, the answer here is that yes, your symptoms probably are real, and you are allowed to seek help, to talk to a medical professional, and to want answers about what you're experiencing. But what if it's all in my head? Well, yes, mental illness affects your mind, so to an extent that is all in your head. You should probably still get help for it though. Though even mental illnesses can have physical components to them, so that's fun. But whether experiencing symptoms of mental illness, physical illness, or chronic illness, or the signs of neurodivergence, it's easy to write them off as being due to stress, or even assume that we're wrong about our own bodies and minds. In an op-ed for Teen Vogue published in 2023, Lindsay Beth Myers wrote about how she initially attributed the early symptoms of her type 1 diabetes to a recent breakup. She explains, "There was a heat wave underway. Also, my therapist had recently closed her practice, so when I started losing weight and feeling abnormally fatigued, I just wrote it off as a physicalization of my immense stress, and maybe a spoonful of sexual frustration." Exactly. You're just stressed. It's nothing serious. However, when Lindsay's symptoms persisted, she realised something might be wrong. She continued, "New symptoms popped up, my favourite being a complete inability to hold my pee. Tired of sprinting to the bathroom every 15 minutes, I visited a doctor and presented my laundry list of concerns. What's really frustrating is that even after Lindsay realised there was something wrong with her, her doctor dismissed her symptoms as being due to her breakup and told her that her mind was playing tricks on her body. She was told that her problems were psychological and ended up in hospital with a life-threatening diabetes complication before her symptoms were taken seriously. Setting aside the gender bias in medicine, it's definitely common to dismiss or doubt our own experiences. Author and mental health advocate Alison Ruskin has spoken about this aspect on her Twitter and the podcast she co-hosts Just Between Us. Even though she was diagnosed when she was 4 years old, at times her OCD still makes her doubt her own memories and experiences, leaving her anxious that she's accidentally misleading people when telling them about something that happened, or even that maybe she doesn't have OCD at all. That is someone with a diagnosis, someone who talks very openly about her mental health, who still doubts that she has OCD. So it's very possible that you are minimizing or dismissing symptoms of something that you might really have and might need a diagnosis for. Or maybe you're not, and you're just making too big a deal out of everything. An article in The Guardian in 2023 by Andrew Gregory discusses new research that found although clinicians ranked patient self-assessments as the least important type of evidence during diagnosis, patients' experiences of disease should be taken more seriously. The piece quotes Dr. Tom Pollock, a senior author on the study from the Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology and Neuroscience, King's College London, who said, "No human being is always going to be able to accurately pinpoint the cause of symptoms, and patients and clinicians can both get this wrong. But combining and valuing both views, especially when the diagnostic tests aren't advanced enough to always detect these diseases, may reduce misdiagnosis and improve clinician and patient relationships, which in turn leads to more trust and more openness in symptom reporting." Again, this is scientific research telling doctors that patients' lived experiences are important, and both doctors and you should take your symptoms seriously. It's not all in your head. Wait, what about insert reason why I'm not ill enough here? Maybe it's not all in your head, but really, the pain you're experiencing is completely normal and nothing to make a big deal about. If we're used to being in pain or discomfort, we can end up thinking it's normal. There are lots of ways this normalization plays out. About 6 days ago, I woke up with horrible nerve pain right along my cheekbone, from my ear to my eye, and the skin over the top of that nerve has gone numb. This seems very normal to me, but I mentioned it to a friend yesterday, and apparently it's not. Why is it numb? But I'm just too used to going to the doctor and trying to explain my weird body things, and them just saying, well, bodies don't normally do that. And then I'm just like, okay then, good, sure, I guess we'll leave it there, see what happens. Either it goes away or, I don't know, I have a brain aneurysm. I'm not a doctor, that's why I'm asking you. So I've just started skipping the going to the doctor bit, unless it's really bad and someone else makes me. Because either it will go away or I'll have a brain aneurysm. Probably not that one. Anyway, women and people of marginalised genders in particular are told that pain is just to be expected, which leads us to dismiss what we are feeling. A clinical review of chronic pelvic pain in women published by the BMJ in 2010 shares a patient's perspective on this. I've suffered with period pain since I was 15. I'd taken various oral contraceptive pills over the years. 16 years later, by chance, a retired doctor noticed that I was using a hot water bottle to ease my period pain, which was unbearable. He told me this was not normal and that it could be endometriosis. 2 months later, I was diagnosed with severe endometriosis. Living with endometriosis is extremely frustrating, especially because the path of diagnosis has been so long. I'm not saying that it will be easy or quick to get answers about why you're in pain or experiencing other symptoms, but you don't have to just accept there's nothing you can do or nothing that will help you. Your symptoms come and go, though, means it can't be anything really serious. It really doesn't. Research published in BMJ Open in 2014 found that patients experienced intermittent symptoms for months or even years prior to being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, but assumed that because the symptoms weren't persistent, they couldn't be significant. The paper concludes patients, and potentially their doctors as well, may be falsely reassured by symptoms that come and go. Pancreatic cancer might be identified at a stage where curative treatment is more likely if there were greater awareness that intermittent gastrointestinal symptoms can have a serious cause, and if patients with intermittent pancreatitis-like symptoms were investigated more readily. Just because symptoms come and go, it doesn't mean they aren't serious or worth investigating. But you aren't really disabled. I mean, look how much worse that person has it. Being someone who talks openly about my chronic illness means sometimes people end up comparing themselves to me and even making decisions about whether they are really disabled based on my experiences. I'm really glad that talking about my experiences has helped other people feel seen, but I also have friends who have told me that they don't think they have EDS because it doesn't affect them as much as mine affects me. I'm like, you can't open jars, and there are good things in jars, so it might be worth considering that you do have EDS and seeking a diagnosis. Two people's experiences of the same condition can vastly differ, and you shouldn't assume that just because someone else's symptoms seem more extreme than yours that you don't have the condition. Are you done with making people think that their symptoms aren't worth investigating? No! You already have one diagnosis. It's very unrealistic to think you might have two. I mean, I definitely do. Sure, some of them are just branching off from the first thing. Most disabilities have knock-on effects, but also some are just things I happen to also have. And the data tells us it's actually very common to have more than one diagnosis. The NHS England website notes that around 40% of people with depression and anxiety disorders also have a long-term condition, such as cardiovascular disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, diabetes, and musculoskeletal disorders. Around 30% of people with a long-term condition and 70% with medically unexplained symptoms, also known as persistent physical symptoms, also have mental health comorbidities. Shocker. Wow. And that's only looking at people with long-term physical conditions, also experiencing mental illness, and doesn't account for people who experience more than one chronic illness or disability. Well, what about the fact that there can be quite severe consequences to ignoring what your body is telling you? A 2011 study published in Cancer Nursing explored the reasons why women avoided seeking healthcare even after the development of a malignant wound from a breast lump. The women in the study delayed seeking care for as long as possible until their situations became unmanageable, with the median time they waited being 24 months and the longest being 84 months. I'm not trying to scare you or suggest you are currently ignoring the symptoms of a life-threatening illness, but it is important not to assume that you're making a fuss over nothing, or that your symptoms aren't worth taking seriously. Oh, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. I want to share another part of Corinne Miller's article that really stood out to me, talking about her experiences before she decided to talk to a doctor about her fainting episodes. She said, I also didn't want to make it a big deal, even though it was arguably already a big deal that I was randomly passing out all the time. I pride myself on being able to soldier through just about anything, and a part of me still isn't totally comfortable acknowledging this side of my health history because I don't want to seem fallible. But that same dismissal meant I put off getting not only answers, but the help I really needed. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, it's this. You deserve to get the help you need. Despite what our ableist, capitalist society would have you believe, you aren't a better or more worthy person for struggling on when you're in pain or distress. But of course, it's important to keep things in perspective. No, we've established you're not right about this. Taking your own symptoms and experiences seriously is important, and getting a diagnosis can really help that. A diagnosis allows you to put a name to what you've been experiencing and validate that something is wrong. For example, if you tick a number of the boxes for having ADHD, and even have people who don't actually spend an overwhelming amount of time with you telling you in the comments of your videos that you might have ADHD, when you eventually decide to get a diagnosis, you might find that all of the things you've had so much shame about for years and years aren't actually a moral failing of yours, but symptoms of ADHD. Just to describe one entirely hypothetical example, seeking a diagnosis can help make sense of things you've struggled with in the past and give you a framework and resources for tackling them in the future. It can also help you find community and connect with people who understand what you're going for. It's the same reason we use labels for LGBTQ+ identities. Two people might have very different experiences of their gender or sexuality but still use the same label. It's a way to find community and to start conversations, a shorthand for things that are important to us and that impact how we move through the world. Of course, there are many reasons why getting a diagnosis might not be possible for you. Barriers can include the cost of healthcare, medical misogyny, or trauma from encountering racism or transphobia in previous healthcare experiences, or just a medical trauma. I've got many suitcases full of that in my attic. And I'm planning on discussing more about diagnosis and the pathway towards getting one, and what on earth you do next in future videos. However, I want to stress that you are allowed to make a big deal out of your health. You're not wasting time or exaggerating or taking up resources that other people deserve more than you do. If you're in any doubt, this is your sign that you are sick enough to talk to a doctor and seek a diagnosis. In conclusion, in my research for this video, I found that a number of studies mentioned that discussing their symptoms with family and friends often encouraged people to talk to a medical professional. So, If you have a friend you would like to gently nudge towards understanding that they are allowed to take their own symptoms and experiences more seriously, please consider sending them this video. Hi friend who was sent this video, this is for you. It's about you. We're talking to you. Okay, I'm not sure I can necessarily claim that's a scientifically backed recommendation, but I do hope this video can help people believe that your symptoms are real and it's okay to make a big deal out of your health. I'm really excited about making this series about diagnosis, so please leave a comment if you've enjoyed this video or leave your suggestions for other topics around diagnosis, diagnoses, anything you would like me to cover within that. And please make sure you're subscribed so you get a notification when I upload the next video in this series. If you don't necessarily trust YouTube to notify you, which I would not blame you for, you can also follow me on Instagram at Jessica Out of the Closet for updates about videos, but also photos of just me being gay and disabled in my full vintage fashion fabulousness. And thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Right now there is an exceptional offer on for Black Friday. Go to surfshark.com/Jessica. An extra 4 months of Surfshark at an exceptional price? Yes, please. But hurry, this offer won't last long. Click the link in the description now. Finally, a big thank you to my clubbies for their support. The Kellgren-Fozard Club is a membership club right here on YouTube channel that includes special packs like a shout out in your birthday month and an exclusive behind the scenes monthly video. And also your comments will rise to the top of the comments section, which really helps to drown out any homophobic and ableist comments that people leave. I don't know what you're talking about. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.